I'm Jeremy Hubbard, standing on the back deck of the only ocean liner still in operation in the world, and we're going to spend 7 days at sea crossing the Atlantic. What's it like to spend an entire week without seeing dry land? Find out in this episode of Window Seat. If you've ever been on a cruise, heck, if you've ever been on 100 cruises, I guarantee you none of them are quite like this. You are staring at 149,000 gross tons of ocean-going magnificence that is Cunard's Queen Mary II, a throwback to the opulence and sophistication of the mid-19th century ocean liners, sister ship to some of the most famous vessels to ever cross the Atlantic, longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall, 250 feet longer than Titanic, wider, taller, and faster too, and it sails nearly the same path as that famed ship that rests 13,000 feet below the Atlantic.
We're here.
And we are shoving off on a week-long adventure to discover what it's really like to spend 7 days at sea with no land in sight. How strange is that? Is it unnerving? Are there icebergs? Can you keep yourself busy without stopping in a different exotic port of call every day at sea? Just who exactly travels like this? We're about to find out. There are few places quite as cool to depart from than the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. A party breaks out on the aft deck this Friday afternoon as oceangoers take in the amazing sights of Lower Manhattan off in the distance, volleying for pictures of the vast buildings that scrape the sky on this crystal clear blue day in late May. Within minutes, we are passing by the iconic Statue of Liberty, saying goodbye to America in the same way so many immigrants said hello to the USA in the late 1800s and early 1900s. As we spend the next few minutes navigating New York Harbor, the Staten Island Ferry at our tail, and an amazing view in the distance. That's New Jersey there on the far left of your screen, Manhattan in the middle, and that's Brooklyn over there to the right. A few housekeeping items to get out of the way right here. This is not a commercial. We got nothing for free from the cruise line in exchange for this video. And this actually isn't the first time I've made this crossing. It's the fourth, because I volunteer with an amazing veterans charity that brings World War II and Vietnam veterans aboard this ship to share their stories with star-struck military buffs in the ship's theater throughout the week. Veterans like Steve Melnikoff right here. He's 103 years old and survived the D-Day invasion, if you can believe it. More on him and what the veterans do aboard this ship still to come. But first, take a look at this. This is what it's like at the very moment the ship passes beneath the Verrazano Narrows Bridge connecting Brooklyn and Staten Island. It is a tight fit. They say at high tide it would only clear the bridge by about 13 feet. As we speed past the suspension bridge, we get one last chance to see dry land for the next 7 days. Hope you like the water, baby, because you are about to see a whole lot of it over the next week. All right, a bit more about this vessel. At the time of her maiden voyage in 2004, she was the largest passenger ship ever built, and she can move with a max speed of about 33 miles per hour compared to most traditional cruise ships with an average speed of 27 miles per hour or so. Not too shabby. She sits 200 feet above the waterline and has 18 decks, 13 of them accessible to passengers. She's also a great place for your cats and dogs. The ship has a kennel with room for 24 pets, which actually isn't new for vessels crossing the Atlantic. Believe it or not, there were 12 dogs aboard Titanic, and 3 of them, 2 Pomeranians and a Pekingese, actually survived. And one very unique thing about Queen Mary II? This ship is an ocean liner. It's not your standard cruise ship. It's built different. It's built to sustain the heavy seas and strong winds, big waves that can come from crossing the North Atlantic. It really is the only ship in the world designed to do this crossing. What's the difference? Queen Mary II has 40% more steel in her structure than a cruise ship would, and its bow is long and tapered to help it cut through the waves. And there can be waves. Conditions in the North Atlantic can be very unpredictable. And while you can get out on the deck and take a leisurely stroll, just as travelers did 100 years ago, you're probably not going to do it in a bikini. This ain't the Caribbean. On this crossing, we are lucky enough to have amazing conditions. Right now is probably 50-some degrees, not a cloud in the sky, no wind whatsoever. Gorgeous, bright, sunny day in the North Atlantic, and those are few and far between, so you got to enjoy them. A bit more now on the inside of the ship. They really embrace the history of Cunard on board, from the celebrities who've crossed the Atlantic aboard their ships in the past to the cruise line's role in World War II when Cunard ships were brought into service, transformed into troop transport ships, and loaded with as many as 13,000 GIs crossing from the U.S. to Europe and back to fight with the Allies. Some of the very veterans we're traveling with on this crossing, in fact, either went to war or returned home from war on ships just like this one. Veterans like Mabel Jaworski.
Yeah, I could touch the pipes. That's how crowded it was. They had bunk, 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 bunk. And I was up on top, touching the pipe.
Which brings us back to why we're crossing on the Queen Mary 2. I actually volunteer with this amazing veterans charity called the Greatest Generations Foundation. You can learn more about them from the link in the video description below. For 2 decades, they have made it their mission to return World War II and Vietnam veterans back to the battlefields where they served. That means taking Pearl Harbor survivors back to Hawaii, Iwo Jima survivors like Jim Blaine here back to the Pacific.
There was no place you could hide. You couldn't dig a foxhole because it would cave in on you. So you're constantly exposed. And the snipers had a field day.
And former POWs like Harold Radish here back to the fighting grounds of Europe.
The Queen Elizabeth had 3 swimming pools. They were drained and they put carpeting in there. And what was going on for 24 hours, there were crap games. Going to war, but you gotta shoot crap.
For more than 5 years now, they've partnered with Cunard to have special programming on at least one Atlantic crossing per year, usually around Memorial Day, where veterans share their war stories with a captivated audience in the Queen Mary 2 Theater each and every day. It is emotional and unforgettable.
I'm very fortunate. Yeah, I'm 103 years old, 1919 birth. You have to have a positive attitude.
And they're already making plans for the May and June 2024 crossing to coincide with the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So, if you're interested in booking passage, that might be something you start thinking about.
Thank you for your service, sir.
These veterans, by the way, are the stars of the ship for the entire week. They're greeted with hugs and handshakes everywhere they go, and it really is something special to see. One of many special things to experience aboard this ocean liner. But I know the question you might be asking, am I going to get bored? You might, but that's kind of the point. This is supposed to be a throwback to days gone by, to simpler times where our every waking moment wasn't occupied with social media and devices and work emails. This is supposed to be a week spent dialing back from the busy world, and a week spent eating, and there are plenty of opportunities for that. The King's Court Buffet is loaded down with lots of choices for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and if you're a fan of traditional English breakfast with sausage and baked beans and all that, you're going to love it. There's also a ton of other dining options. There's a spa and an incredibly cool library with thousands of books to help you lose yourself while at sea. There are lounges like the Golden Lion and the Chart Room. There's a fancy steakhouse, too. And the Britannia restaurant, which will remind you of how first-class folks dined back in the heyday of ocean travel. And there's nightlife, the opulent Queen's Room, where ballroom dancing takes place pretty much every night, a real throwback to yesteryear. And for the young and the young at heart, there's a late-night nightclub called G32 where people dance the night away, including, I might add, a couple of those World War II veterans. That 103-year-old Steve Melnikoff could often be found at G32 until 2 in the morning. And on our most recent crossing, they did something really cool. They introduced silent disco, where the room falls mostly silent while you listen to one of 3 music channels on headphones, finding camaraderie with those jamming to the same tunes as you. If you've never done it, find a bar that does it where you live and give it a try. It's really fun. There are a lot of unique and amazing things about crossing the Atlantic on the world's only active passenger ocean liner, harkening back to the way Jack and Rose did it. But again, you gotta know, this is nothing like cruising the Caribbean, nothing at all. There are definitely times, though, that you do not want to be outside. Right now, it's approaching sunset. We're about midway through the cruise. This is a Tuesday, day 3 or 4 at sea, and up on the top deck here, deck 12, I think, of 13, close to the top deck. It is windy. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time outside, probably, but wow, what an amazing sunset. So if you're willing to risk these gale force winds, it can be worth your while. If you can brave the winds, go up on the top deck after dark and check out the night sky in the middle of the Atlantic. You've never felt quite so remote and alone in your life. Thousands of miles from shore, in thousands of feet of water, yet comfortable in the knowledge that if any ship can handle what this ocean can throw at her, it's this one. And yes, a week out here might seem like a long time, but it actually goes faster than you think. If you take the eastbound crossing from New York to Southampton, you have to set your clock forward an hour at noon pretty much every day you're at sea, meaning by the end of the crossing, your day is 5 or 6 hours shorter than it was when you first set sail. And before you know it, early in the morning, exactly 7 days after departing New York City, here you are, finally in jolly old England, pulling into the famous port at Southampton, where you can watch the crew choreograph a quick turnaround, loading the vessel with enough provisions to do it all over again, this time going the other direction. So there you have it, a week aboard the world's only remaining ocean liner, 7 days at sea, never seeing dry land. It's certainly not for everyone, but if you're in for an adventure and an old-timey throwback to the Titanic days with a much better outcome, this might just be the mission for you. I'm Jeremy Hubbard. We'll see you next week right here on Window Seat. Well, hope you enjoyed this trip across the ocean. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to hit subscribe and like and share with your friends too, especially to help spread the word about that amazing veterans charity we work with and love, the Greatest Generations Foundation. You can find out more information about them once again in the video description below. And you can learn more about our travels and our attempt to visit every country on the planet by watching one of these other videos. We'll be back with a brand new adventure next Friday, right here on Window Seat.